The Argentine peso is soaring after President Milei's party secured a sweeping victory in midterm elections there. The better-than-expected results give Milei a mandate to push ahead with his economic reforms. He says the victory also gives new hope to Argentina.
Tenemos una oportunidad histórica e irrepetible como país.
We have a unique historic opportunity as a country. We have the responsibility to put aside partisan interest and think as a country. We trust that we can work together with all the forces with whom we have common ground to achieve the changes that Argentina has been crying out for so many years.
The Argentine peso jumped more than 3% on those election results. Some analysts say voters fear the economic consequences of abandoning Milei's austerity policies. President Trump, you may remember, threatened to withdraw an enormous multi-billion-dollar financial lifeline if voters didn't choose Milei's party. Edward Luce is the U.S. national editor at the Financial Times. Good to have you on. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Jim. It was a pleasure.
So I wonder, do you see this as a short-term reprieve for Milei and the reforms he's pursuing, or a longer, more lasting vote of confidence in him?
Well, it certainly beats the alternative. I mean, if the Peronists had won these midterm elections, then Trump would have found $20 billion, this credit swap lifeline that he threw Milei earlier this month. He would have found that went down the drain, and he had threatened Argentinian voters with that if they did vote for the Peronists. So to some extent, Trump engineered this victory and bought Milei time to try and generate the foreign exchange revenues to pay off the massive foreign debt bills that Argentina has to pay every year, $18 billion over the next year. So yeah, it buys Milei time. It's certainly better than the alternative from Milei's point of view, but it doesn't fix Argentina's underlying structural problems.
Buying is a key word there in that you mentioned, and we mentioned in the introduction, that President Trump had made it quite clear that if Milei's party had lost, he might have withdrawn that lifeline. Is it your sense that voters effectively listened to that threat and said, hey, we better vote for him, otherwise Trump's going to abandon us?
So my understanding from the reporting of some colleagues of ours, who are there and steeped in the Argentinian political scene is, yes, that did have an impact on voter psychology. But it doesn't mean to say that this aid is a freebie for Argentina. Trump wants Milei to cut ties with China. China is also a creditor to Argentina, and also, as it happens, has a $20 billion credit line to Milei's central bank. And cutting that as a price of Trump's continuing support is not something Milei wants to do. He's asking for support wherever he can get it, because this battle to stop the collapse of the peso and trigger another sort of default. Argentina has had 9 defaults in its history, 3 bankruptcies in the last 25 years. To try and stop the next one, he needs help from wherever he can get it. And Trump has made it pretty clear that the condition for his help is that Milei spurns China, and he doesn't want to do that.
You noted in your piece earlier this month that some big U.S. banks are somewhat wary of taking a risk on Argentina. I mean, their record going back years on defaults in that region and elsewhere is, well, you understand why they have some concern.
Well, you do. I mean, they've taken a lot of haircuts, as they say in the markets. This is like been the busiest barber, in the world, the Argentinians. And so banks are sort of, I won't say once bitten, twice shy. I mean, they've been bitten many times, as have other investors. It is a great moment, though, for, junk bond and vulture bond investors, because, well, we're seeing a real boom, a rebound, at least for the time being, in Argentinian debt prices. As I say, this buys time. But what Milei has to do to generate, to have an economy that generates the kind of growth that will allow Argentina easily to service its foreign debts and then move beyond this terrible period of bankruptcies. Now that involves a lot more. That involves a lot of haircuts for the Argentinian average person. So this is a very difficult equation.
When you look at Donald Trump's approach to two major countries in Latin America and the contrast, right? Argentina, he likes Milei, offers an enormous bailout, $40 billion in the midst of a government shutdown here in this country. In Brazil, where his friend is being prosecuted for attempting to overturn the election, the penalty, right, is 50% tariffs because Trump doesn't like that and he wants to apply economic pressure. I mean, the common theme there, right, is if you're a friend of Trump, you get taken care of, and if you're not, you get penalized. But is that a contiguous U.S. Latin American policy, or is it really just the personalization of U.S. foreign policy via how Trump sees it from his own perspective?
I think a lot of it is the personalization. I mean, as we were discussing, it's in Argentina's interests, as it is in most countries, that are not America and China, to have good trading and financial relationships with both America and China. And we're seeing, a closening of economic cooperation across Latin America with China, whilst making attempts not to fall out with the United States. So that's what most countries want. Brazil is an interesting case because Lula, the Brazilian president, has had 50% tariffs slapped on his country by Trump as a punishment for the jailing or the prison sentence handed out to Jair Bolsonaro, Trump's friend and former president. It might be the case that that Lula will get some kind of a reprieve in the coming days. There have been talks between US and Brazil. So you do also have to, with Trump, go back to what one of my colleagues, the trade specialists on the Financial Times, Alan Beatty, describes as nobody knows anything. Unpredictability is part of Trump's, way of doing business.
Yeah, no question. And listen, that China piece is interesting because it's not just Argentina, Brazil. I mean, some of America's closest trading partners, including in Europe, Canada. I mean, they're saying, listen, as we go through the trade wars, we actually have to expand our markets, and that includes China. So that's one area of contrast with Trump's intentions. Ed Luce, great to have you on. Thanks so much.
Real pleasure. Thank you.